I hereby call this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. We'll now move into Section 2, swearing in.
Hello, everyone. So, Kian will be doing your oath of office. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kian Williams,
Hereby swear
hereby swear
that I will faithfully serve the students of Wichita State University,
that I will faithfully serve the students of Wichita State University,
act in accordance with the Constitution of the student body,
act in accordance with the Constitution of the student body,
and fulfill all duties and responsibilities
and fulfill all duties and responsibilities
required of the office of
required of the office of
your office is pro temp.
Speaker Pro Tempore of the Student Senate.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the student body of Wichita State University.
the Constitution of the student body of Wichita State University.
Awesome.
Congratulations. We will now move into Section 3, roll call.
With 36 members present, 19 is simple majority, and 2/3 is 24.
Thank you. We will now move into Section 4, public forum and presentations. Public forum provides a chance for individuals to have the privilege of speaking before the Senate. This is a time for the association to listen to what the community has to say. And to that, we offer our undivided respect and attention. I would like to remind everyone that although we allow the speakers the privilege to use this platform, the opinions of the speakers do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the association nor the university. First, for public forum, we have Katie Austin, Director of Housing and Residence Life, to speak. Awesome.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me this time. As they said, my name is Katie Austin. I serve as the Director of Housing and Residence Life, and with me is our Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs, Scott Jensen. He's handing out our handouts. We've come before the Senate today to present about the Housing and Residence Life rates for the following year. Each year, Housing presents these rates to the Senate for feedback as a part of our process before we submit the rates to KBOR for approval. So to provide a little historical context, for the last 3 years, Housing and Residence Life has been able to maintain our rates at flat with no increase to rates. We're very proud that we're able to do that, especially through the pandemic. We made some different fiscal decisions to ensure that we were able to do that for 3 years. That included our dining rates as well as our room rates. Each year, dining has increased rates to cover their food costs by 3%. And again, for the past 3 years, we've absorbed that increase into our operating cost instead of passing that on to the student. So this will be the first year 4, that we'll be asking for an increase in order to meet the needs in our operating costs. We've seen costs rise in relation to our utilities, in relation to our labor costs, and in relation to maintenance and supply costs. So we are proposing this year a 1.5% increase on our room rate, particularly on our doubles and triples, which are our low-cost options. We have the lowest increase rate on the triple, as you can see, and proposing a 3% increase on our single rooms. Again, we changed the amount between singles and doubles in order to ensure that our low-cost options could stay as low as possible. In regards to dining, we are looking to increase that rate 3% in order to help with the cost of rising food costs that have come along in the last 4 years. If you've been to the grocery store, you've seen that, and those costs have, in order to have a good variety and a good amount of things in the dining hall, that cost has increased each year, and we are needing to pass part of that cost on now to our consumers, our students. So at this time, feel free to look over the rate sheets you were provided, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time for Katie Austin? Yes, Senator Unruh.
What sorts of factors go into the specific percentages increase you make for different types of rooms? Like, why are some more than others, and what kind of went into that decision?
Great question. For our rates sheets, we always try to round to the nearest $5 or $10 amount. So sometimes the percentage is slightly different in order to get at kind of an even number. It's for our marketing purposes, for our brochures. We keep those nice flat rates instead of saying our rate is $3,413.26. We try to round those up or down in order to get some round numbers. Other questions?
Are there any other yes, Senator Liu.
For students who are already living in in the residence halls, are they able to keep the rates they pay from their beginning to the end, or will students who, let's say, live in this flats this year and plan on living next year, will see the increase?
Great question. Each year is an academic year contract, so when they sign up, they agree to the rates of that year. So this year's rates are set, and that will be honored obviously through May, and then if they choose to live with us again next year, they would sign a different contract at a different rate set.
Senator Barlow.
I've heard a number of students criticize the food options being offered in the dining hall. Is the proposed increase going to introduce a higher quality of food for students, or is it just to maintain the status quo?
Great question. I don't run our dining services operation. That is run by Chartwell's, but we do work closely with them. We recently met. We had student staff members meet with dining for an advisory board and provide feedback about quality and variety. They are also running into supply chain issues I've been informed of, but we do hope to continually improve the options provided to students. And the more feedback that we're able to give them, I think that's always helpful. So I'll be sure to share that.
I have a question. In regards to comparing between housing and residence life as well as like outside apartments, do you know how this compares to the rates and prices at other apartments around campus?
Yeah, great question. So if you're looking at our flats rates there, we generally don't compare to market prices because we are offering a different product by living on campus, by being a part of that residence life experience, by employing resident assistants, our student employees. We do offer something different than what a typical apartment experience would be. But overall, you'd find that some of our shared spaces can be comparable to those around the area, particularly some of the new buildings that have come up, the newer apartment buildings.
Senator Haynes.
Yeah, good evening. With the school facing these record numbers of enrollment, did that in any way impact these proposed numbers for next year, seeing that enrollment is currently on the up and up, and the decision to raise prices does affect those students, specifically international students who have to live on campus for their first year of school? Did that affect the decision at all?
Sure, great question. So, I mean, we are happy to say that demand has been strong for housing, particularly our returning housing, where again, they don't have to live on campus. They are choosing to still do that, and we're filling at the flats. So that shows us that we're meeting a need out there and that there are folks that are wanting to live in that housing that we have. But ultimately, we're looking again to cover rising costs more than we are trying to take advantage of rising enrollment.
Chairperson Owens.
You said that there's a need for more students who are returning to live in the flats. I've heard that there has been a change and freshmen are now allowed to room in the flats. Is this true?
That is not true. So the flats is for returners only, and we actually had a wait list at the end of this last year, so more folks wanted to live in the flats than we could accommodate. So we know there's a good demand for it. It is for returners only. The suites and Shocker Hall are for first-year students, and the suites can be adjusted a little bit based on demand that we have from first-year versus returning population. So, good question.
Senator Victoria Owens.
Hi, I was wondering if there was still more interest with the rise in demand for the flats of continuing to build onto the flats like it originally was planned.
Yeah, great question. So there have been some initial discussions around that topic. And again, we want to make sure that demand it stays at that level before we build or take on any further investment. So we're going to watch the trends for the next year and a half and see where that's at before we move forward with any other decisions.
Senator Liu.
So with these rising costs, do you have any plans or like any ideas to keep costs lower for students in the years to come?
Great question. So Housing and Residence Life did use this past Founders Day of Giving to establish a housing scholarship fund, which is a new initiative that we are trying to get more dollars to students to help those especially who have financial need. We're trying to employ more students regularly. We did raise our wages in accordance with what SGA was doing with those positions that were funded to $10 an hour for all of our student employee positions, whether that's a student custodial worker, a office assistant, any of our folks that are on the hourly wages. So we're trying to help out by employing more students as well as getting some scholarship dollars going.
Are there, yes, Senator Wassinger.
Yeah, so when you raise the costs for housing or in this case for like the Chartwell's meal plans, does that information go out to any of like the big scholarship donors that kind of promote scholarships as being like a full ride as if, because I know like when you raise the cost, if they're gonna keep their same rate, it may not actually cover everything.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do advertise these widely. I have seen in the past where scholarship amounts have gone up to reflect different changes. For example, I know, the Clay Barton scholarship that they give out in business used to be $44,000. That's $50,000. It's gone up with the cost of tuition and fees and things. So I think a lot of donors are looking at that information. I know with the Rudd scholarship, they cover up to the last dollar, so they make sure that they are still a full ride for them. But absolutely. Good question.
Are there any further questions? Yes, Senator Haynes.
You mentioned the housing scholarship. Now, as an international student, I have to ask, and as an international student who has to pay, frankly, a lot of money for housing, has to ask, is that scholarship eligible to all students, including international students, or does that work for only domestic students?
Yeah, it's actually targeted at international students. One of my former resident assistants gave the leading gift on that, and he was an international student, and he is working with us as we select the folks who will get that over the years to especially assist international students.
Senator Barlow.
Let's say you magically were able to increase your budget from 3% to 5 or even 10%. What would be top of your list for things that you would want to do that you can't do with this increase?
Ooh, let's see. I think we are always looking to, increase wages where we can and make sure that students have wages that they can be using for anything they need toward their education. I think that's something that, again, we want to be competitive with other folks that are hiring, even if it's off campus. So I think we'd put a lot of that money, if we were able to increase it, into student wages to hire and retain good student employees as well as good full-time employees to support our students and help with our retention initiatives.
Are there any further questions at this time? Senator Bastian.
Hi, this might not be directly related to what you sent out, but have you thought about combining the residence parking with the cost of housing for students who need to park on campus?
Sure. So it used to be that residential parking was separate, and we had Lot 5, and that was cordoned off for residential students. And that was not able to meet the capacity, as well as I think there was a need that folks wanted to park other places on campus that were more convenient for them at different times. So at that point, they changed to where every student had that green parking pass in order to allow them to park anywhere on campus that they wanted to. So we don't have plans for that at the moment. I know with the help of SGA last year, we did combine the Flats Underground Parking Garage parking permit to include a green permit, so they could park underground or in any green spot, and that was an initiative that came forward through SGA that Parking Services agreed to, so that was great. I think that's something that we could chat about more in the future. At the moment, I haven't heard a lot myself about housing parking in particular and folks wanting that to be a part of housing, but it's a good point.
Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you again.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
At this time, item 2 under public forum, Brandon McLean, advisor.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I just dropped in the group me now, something I've been really excited about for a long time, ever since I took this role in late May. So for those of you who do not know a little bit about Greek life, there's currently 4 councils to the fraternity and sorority life community here at Wichita State University. And this upcoming Friday, we welcome the 4th and newest one, but at the same time, one of the more historic ones in the National Panhellenic Council. To give you a little bit more information about that, for those who do not know, the National Panholytic Council comprises of 9 fraternities and sororities that serve historically black students, but not singularly black students. So you have Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, you have Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, all of which are phenomenal organizations. And actually at this campus, we actually host 7 active chapters here at WSU, and we're really excited because for those who don't know, we used to be the council used to be a part of the Multicultural Greek Council, but with this upcoming year and as we prepared for this semester, the council made the decision that they wanted to sort of branch off on their own on something of which a lot of campuses across the world, and especially within Kansas, also do as well. So this upcoming Friday, for those of you, if any senators who are interested in participating in the ceremony, I've dropped the flyer and the group in the Eventbrite link there. We're looking to have about 400 people RSVP for this event, and we're almost at capacity. So I'm really excited about this. This is an opportunity for, as a Shocker community, for us to come together and really talk about how do we talk about diversity, empowerment, inclusion as a campus community, and I would love to see as many of my senators also partake in those conversations as possible. So it's the other part of my job. I don't just do SGA. I also do National Panhellenic Council advising. So is there any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will now move into Section 5, Introductions and Reports. Item 1, report from the executive branch.
Point of
Chief-
order.
Yes.
I'm sorry, were you going to give everyone else a chance to speak in public forum?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Senator Barlow. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak during public forum? Yes, Senator Barlow.
All right, I wanted to apologize in advance. I tend to hyper-focus on things, so if I'm way off, I'm sorry. I wanted to talk about the Committee on Budget and Finance tonight. This is just from the bylaws. They are discharged to research, report, and make recommendations to the Senate regarding funding bills. The committee hears and makes recommendations on funding requests from individual and recognized student organizations. After individuals and organizations apply for funding, the treasurer reviews the applicants for basic requirements and then submits the request to the Budget and Finance Committee. The committee hears the request, interviews the applicant, then submits a recommendation to the Senate for the appropriate amount. As a senator, we are responsible for ensuring that the Budget and Finance Committee conducts a thorough hearing and that the request should be granted to the individual or organization. Now, the very first piece of legislation put before this session, 65-001, was a series of amendments to the Fairness in Funding Act. This was introduced in April of 27. One of the purposes of this bill was to change the window of time required for students wishing to submit for individual funding requests. This was moved from 45 days down to 10 days. We have heard repeatedly now how moving funding requests onto the consent agenda is being done in order to expedite the process. But the effect of this change is now apparent. There are no first reads of these funding bills. There are no second reads of these funding bills. There's no voting, no discussion, no accountability. Our primary function as a legislative body has been violated. Since the passage of these amendments, 11 out of 11 individual funding requests have moved through Senate without reports, debates, voting, or any functional oversight from the Budget and Finance Committee. I've put together a list of all of these funding requests, all 11 of them. The first 4 refer to being introduced on September 9th. Not only do I have no memory of these funding requests taking place, but there are no posted minutes or agendas for that week's Senate session, which met on the 7th. Nothing in Teams, nothing in Outlook, and that totals just about $4,000. Every other bill from Budget and Finance is of the exact same quality. Some of them say they're introduced on the 14th when they weren't. Others were not read when they said they were read. After tonight's consent agenda is passed, over $10,000 of student fees money will have been spent with no Senate oversight. 100% of all student fees requests are now moving through on the consent agenda without the proper protocols being followed. Budget and Finance, wittingly or unwittingly, is now abusing the Fairness in Funding Act that was pushed through all the way back in April before many of the present senators were even sworn in. The process of funding is broken, and the only explanation given is that this is to provide funding in a timely manner. This feels like it's by design, and it feels like it's meant to trick apathetic or inattentive student senators into forfeiting their primary purpose in this body. Tonight, I will move to rescind the 10-day amendment from the Fairness in Funding Act. Hopefully that will return to this body proper vetting and voting capabilities. I stand for questions or corrections.
Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Owens.
Not a question, but more of a correction. The reason why some of those bills say the first read is October 14th is because we read most of those during legislative affairs, which all of the chairs sit on. So that's why that specifically says legislative affairs, and then we vote on to pass that and introduce it to the Senate. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak during public forum? Seeing none, we will move into Section 5, Introductions and Reports. Item 1, Report from the Executive Branch, Chief of Staff Hoops.
I was pushing the wrong button. Good evening, Senators. I hope everyone had a great fall break. I wanted to let you all know that we had our last introductory policy meeting today. We were doing these meetings just to get some solid action items moving forward. You should see an update to the website coming by the end of this week. Diversity Week, it will be 2 weeks-ish, October 31st through November the 4th. Again, there's been some posters put up around campus for that with a list of events or anything. If you have any questions, refer those to Director Albury. President Kirk and Vice President Thornton are at a dinner tonight with the Kansas Board of Regents as part of their visit. And some members of both Senate and Executive Branch leadership were given the opportunity to meet with them over lunch today, get some questions answered and things like that. Pretty short update this week, but as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. We will now move into item 2, report from the Speaker of the Senate. So from the last Senate meeting, I have met with the Student Organization Council Chair to find some ideas for Meet Your Senator Day. Again, name still pending. And that is getting in the works. I have also met with some applicants who have applied to become senators, and as you can see, we have a few on tonight, and we have some on next week that I have made for nominees. And then the last thing I wanted to discuss was just the importance of your role, excuse me, your role as a senator. We come every week to Senate, and we have nominations, we have organization bills, we have reports, and these are all good. And I'm not saying any of these things are bad, but from my talk with previous senators, as well as current senators, as well as just students, we're not doing anything to necessarily benefit the students. I'm not saying what you do and come every Wednesday is not beneficial to the students. I thank you personally for coming every Wednesday. However, we need to do more. So if you have any ideas on what more we can do to benefit students, or students watching, if you have any ideas on what we can do, we need to be doing more that's geared towards the issues that students are facing here on campus. Whether that means amping up our communication with our constituency, whether that means drafting bills and or resolutions, whether that means having discussions here in Senate, whether we agree or disagree with Senator Barlow's opinions, he's right. He's fierce and amped up about doing things for the students. And in the same aspect, I think we need to be just as amped up about the other issues that students face here on campus. So with that being said, that is my report, and I will stand for any questions at this time. Yes, Senator Bastian.
Have you thought about incorporating Zoom into all of your events? Because due to time constraints, it's easier for me to attend events virtually rather than actually be here for them.
To answer that question, no, I have not. But again, I am willing to hear any solutions, possible solutions, and or possible concerns from senators and or students. So thank you. Any other questions at this time? All right, seeing none, we will move into item 3, report from the Senate leadership, starting with Chairperson Williams.
Good evening, Senators. From a government relations perspective, we were excited today to join Safety and Student Services in touring the Shocker Support Locker, learning more about its limitations and what student government can better do to support the locker. We are also excited that the voter registration deadline passed last night, and we surpassed our goal of registering 150 new voters on Wichita State's campus. And we are beginning to shift into our Get Out the Vote efforts, encouraging students to cast their ballot on or before November 8th. And lastly, from the pro tempore perspective, I'm finally excited to get to start working on the caucuses. Speaker Van Dyke Jr. and I will begin formulating a plan of action to present to you in the future. If you have any thoughts on the potential caucus system, please feel free to reach out to either of us. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions at this time for Chairperson Williams? Seeing none, we will now hear from Chairperson Owens.
Hello, everyone. Hope you all had a good fall break. And I would like to say that our committee, like Chairperson Williams stated, had the distinct pleasure of touring the Shocker Support Locker and understanding how living in a food desert does affect many of our students, specifically our international students, and something needs to change so that we can better support those students who come here without any semblance of home. So they want to be able to have the ability to find safe haven here, especially for things like food. So other than that, my committee next week will start discussions about Wellness Week coming up in the spring, as well as Safety Week. So we'll be hearing more about that next week and onward. Other than that, next committee, we will also be discussing a specific time for our committee to meet with the dining hall staff, specifically Matthew Prey, about food labeling in the dining hall, as well as food options for people who have food restrictions. So if anyone is interested in coming to those meetings, just reach out to me, and then we can set up a time that works for everyone, or I can give you the minutes of that specific meeting in case anyone is unavailable during that time. I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. We will now, before we get to you, Chairperson Harmon, Chairperson Lane is out today due to a back procedure, but her report will be in the minutes. And feel free to contact her via email to schedule a virtual appointment or for any questions you may have. She will be back in the office on Friday. Now we will hear from Chairperson Harmon.
Hello, everyone. I hope you've had a good week. I don't have too much, so I'm not going to use too much of your time. What I want to report is that there are about 4 organizations in the process of recognition at the moment, and so they will likely go through the committee next week once I have a chance to meet with those organizations. And as you all know, we had a first read for 3 organizations last week, and those will be on their second read tonight. And so other than that, we are still working on our commentary project, and so hopefully next week we will be able to present to you the Constitution portion of that project so that you can actually see some of what we've been doing. So if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you for that report. We will hear from Chairperson Lesnick.
Good evening, Senate. I really hope you enjoyed your short but hopefully restful break. I know I tried. The committee is doing things normally. Today was one of our busiest days. We had 5 different organizations and individuals present to us. As well, today I have attended lunch with Kansas Board of Regents, with other members of the leadership of Student Government Association. And that is kind of all I have for now. I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you for that report. We will now move into item 4 of section 5, report from the Senate Advisor, Advisor McLean.
Hello again. How's everyone doing? Good? Great. All right. As we're starting to close out the semester, I just want to bring up a couple of different things. The Constituent Interaction Forum. I've mentioned this in the past with Senate retreats. Please make sure that you're continuing to fill those out. We currently, I'm sure there's plenty more meetings than this, but we currently have about 15 submissions right now, but they're all really, really great. So I really appreciate all the hard work for that, and I would really encourage that the rest of you, will, as you're continuing to have conversations with your constituents, to continue to fill out that form. It tells a great story at the end of the year, so when at the end of the session, I will come to you all and I'll tell you all these are the things of which we have talked about with the student body, and I'll be able to share that out with the student body as well, that we can tell the larger picture that which we're trying to do here for the student body, which Speaker Van Dyke really so eloquently mentioned. The second point, as we're now starting to gear up for the end of the semester, means we're also gearing up for next spring as well. So for you students who are starting to register for your classes, please put in consideration your senatorial obligations, so that's committee meetings and Senate. So if you need to, for any reason, not be available at 5:30, which is the slot for committees to be starting, please let us know. And by us, I mean myself, Speaker Van Dyke, and your committee chair know as soon as possible. Just in the event that we do need to make some committee adjustments and move some committees off that Wednesday 5:30 time slot to maybe a Monday, or maybe a Tuesday, maybe a Friday at 8 p.m. Whatever we can do. I see a lot of head nods like, I'm not doing that. And that's going to be really fine because I'm not doing that. So just please be mindful of that as you're all starting to craft your schedules for next semester. Same for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. At this time, we will move into section 6, approval of the consent agenda. Are there any objections at this time, Senator Barlow?
I object, and I move to have SB-65-073 moved to section 8, consideration of new business.
Is there a second to that motion? Yes, Senator Mallard We will now open up the floor for discussion. Senator Barlow? No motion. I'm sorry, to the voting period. Remember to turn your clickers on. Is AA, and when I give you the go, A is yes to move it into section 8, consideration of new business. B is no, keep it in the approval of consent agenda, and C is to abstain. And the voting period is now open.
Can you repeat that, Speaker?
Yeah, so at this time, we're voting on the motion to move Senate Bill 65-65-073 funding request for Andrew Francis to Section 8, consideration of new business. A is yes, you want that to happen. B is no, you want it to stay where it is. And C is abstain. And lastly, remember to turn your clickers on is AA.
With 13 yes, 19 no, and 4 abstentions, the motion fails.
All right, at this time, are there any other objections to the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is adopted as such. We will now move into Section 7, consideration of pending business. Item 1 of Section 7, the clerk will read.
Act on request to approve SB-65-069, recognition of WSU Athletic Training Student Association as a student organization.
All right, so we heard from this organization and from the author last week. So at this time, we will now move into the debate period. Chairperson Hartman.
I move to approve with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections at this time? Senator Barlow? Seeing so, we will not approve with unanimous consent. We will now open the debate period back up. Is there anybody here who would like to speak in affirmation or negation of this organization? Seeing none, we will close the debate period and move into the voting period. And when I give you the go, again, A is yes to approve them, B is no, and C is abstain. The voting period is now open.
With 34 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstention, the motion passes.
We will now move to item 2 of Section 7. The clerk will read.
Act on request to approve SB-65-070, recognition of Shockers Taylor's version as a student organization.
Again, this is another organization we heard about last week, so we will open the debate period. Is there anybody who would like to speak during this debate period? Chairperson Harmon.
I move to approve with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections at this time, Senator Barlow? And at this time, we will now reopen the debate period. Is there anybody who would like to speak in affirmation or negation of this? Senator Barlow.
I might be mistaken on what an RSO represents versus just an unaffiliated student group. This group does not feel to me like it needs to be funded by us, and I'm not sure how open it would be to other members on the campus. So I'll be voting in negation of this one.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Oh, yes.
I would encourage the body, as you all proceed with not just this organization, but any organization, that there is a very, very, very clear line for what constitutes a recognized student organization, of which if you do decide to not accept that, you have to understand, and some members of this body are well familiar of this, you have to understand the ramifications of that decision. and the rationale of why. If it's the situation of, hey, I don't think this constitutes or it needs to be or desires to be, you can say that, but it's also not your opinion. It's not just your opinion. It's as an SGA and as a student government association where your job is to approve organizations as long as they hit a certain criteria. That goes to personal beliefs, and that also can lead you to some challenging conversations down the road. I just want to say that it's your own decision. Just be very mindful of those things.
Thank you, Advisor McLean. Yes, Senator Owens.
Kind of going on the same lines, I want to speak in affirmation of the specific RSO because they fit all of the qualifications for an RSO, and therefore they should be an RSO. Whether or not they deserve funding would be whether or not they ask for funding, and then that's a whole other process that has many checks and balances for. So right now, if we're just deciding whether or not they should be, they meet all the requirements, so therefore I believe personally that they should.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in affirmation or negation? Senator Mallard?
I'll be speaking in negation, and my reasoning why is because one of the things we kind of talked about is, does it benefit all of the students as a whole? And I did ask, so what if you don't like Taylor Swift, you listen to all this other music, and it was stated, I believe it was like, then you just shouldn't come because it's not for you, which kind of goes against any of the other organizations. That is my reasoning for that.
Thank you. Senator Cunningham.
I will be speaking in affirmation of this organization and this bill. I do believe that this organization has passed through the Ways and Means Committee, which Chairperson Harmon has thoroughly done the steps that is needed for an RSO. I think there are other organizations on campus that don't benefit all students. I'm part of the Pre-Law Association. If you're not interested in pre-law, this may not be the organization for you, and that's completely okay, but I don't think stripping away the opportunity to other students is appropriate.
Thank you, Senator Wassinger.
Yeah, I'm also going to be speaking in affirmation. And along that point on exclusivity, there are a number of groups on campus that not only are in some ways exclusive, but do honor a specific person. There are a large number of religious organizations, and if you're not down to be a part of that religious organization, they also might say don't show up, like don't listen to Taylor Swift. But also, if you are somebody who's listening or in the body and you really want to be listening to the new album this week, I'm throwing a party, and you're all invited.
Chairperson Harmon.
I would like to clarify that in the constitution of this organization, that they are fully in compliant with the Kansas Board of Regents non-discrimination policy, meaning that according to their own constitution, they would not be able to discriminate against anyone, even if they happen to be a hater of Taylor Swift. So I would just say that discrimination against people who don't like Taylor Swift is not a concern. However, I would question your interest in joining, but it's still open to you, even if you don't want to. And in their constitution, they are fully compliant with that. I would also like to address the concerns of funding. They would have to go through the same process of requesting funding as any other organization, and if the Senate deems it not a worthy cause of funding, we don't have to give them money. But this is a simple recognition so that they can do things like reserve spaces in the RSC for their meetings, very simple, basic things that students are requesting as organizations, and that is why I will be voting in affirmation of this organization.
Thank you. Senator Victoria Owens, did you?
Hi, I just think that in general, RSOs are meant to be places where a bunch of people like one thing or multiple things, and they get together and they have a meeting and they're like, hey, you like this thing? I do too, cool. So I think to say, hey, this isn't important enough to grant recognition, I think is inherently wrong. And even if you're not a fan of Taylor Swift, who cares? Genuinely, who cares? Don't go to the meeting. Or make your own RSO about whatever music you like. But to restrict the ability for this particular group to get RSO status and be able to, get a space in the RSC and talk about things that they like, I think is inherently wrong, so.
Thank you, Senator Barlow.
So I wanted to clarify my position a little bit here. I'm not saying that meeting for a specific celebrity or music group isn't inherently important for people to have access to on campus. It just, I don't know, it strikes me as unusual. And to say that since we have a precedent for prior RSOs that might not fit the status of inclusive enough for everyone to be able to attend, to use that as justification for this one seems like going backwards, not forwards. That's just, I suppose that's my take on that.
Thank you. Chairperson Lesnick.
I will be speaking in affirmation. I do like the word inclusivity, and I want to go back to this word. I think it's important for us to recognize that every single person on this campus is unique and has their own interests. Not every student will enjoy joining WSU Democrats. Not every student will enjoy joining WSU College Republicans. Not every student will enjoy joining Black Student Union. There are differences in people on campus, and they should be able to join the organizations that represent them and their interests and their identities. When it comes to inclusivity, with the diversity of the community that this campus hosts, we should just remember that there are people who are different from us and who still should have the space to express themselves and enjoy people who might have mutual interests. And with that, I will be voting in favor. Thank you.
Senator Warden.
Hi. So I would like to point back to when we first started putting in organizations for this coming term, specifically the T1D1, type 1 diabetes. So if we're going to put that if we don't like Taylor Swift, we shouldn't have it as that. Not saying that is the main argument for it, but that it's not exclusive. The type 1 diabetic organization in itself is exclusive for those like that. So using that logic against them, it's not exclusive to everybody, so why should they be a group? I just find that very illogical because it's just a band. I don't even like Taylor Swift, but yet I enjoy that they're coming out and doing this. So I'm going to be voting in affirmation, and I think this should be something that everyone needs to think about. Is it not exclusive to you, or are you just saying that because it just doesn't seem logical?
Thank you, Senator Wassinger.
Yeah, I did already speak in affirmation, so this is just kind of a note for either newer senators or newer to campus senators, or if you just aren't super familiar with the RSO process. I think a lot of people are kind of just shocked at the outlandishness, I guess, of having like a RSO dedicated to Taylor Swift. But we've had some really crazy organizations like Bacon Club or Quidditch Team or any of the other over 200 now organizations. There are a lot of ones that are surrounded on things that might not interest everybody. So take into account that it's not super crazy to have a club about Taylor Swift when we have a club about eating bacon.
At this time, we've heard 3 affirmations. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in negation? Seeing no one, I will close this debate period and we will move into the voting period. When I give the go, A is yes, we would like to confirm them, B is no, and C is abstain. The voting period is now open.
With 34 yes and 2 no, the motion passes.
At this time, we will now move into item 3 under section 7. The clerk will read.
Act on request to approve SB-65-071, recognition of College of Engineering graduate ambassadors as a student organization.
This is another organization we heard about last week, so we will move into the debate period. Is there anybody who would like to? Chairperson Harmon.
I motion to approve with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections at this time? Seeing none, we will approve with unanimous consent. We will now move into section 8, consideration of new business. Item 1 of section 8, the clerk will read.
Okay, this is a first read of SB-65-072, the Adult Learners Act.
Is the author here and wish to speak? The podium is yours.
Yes, I am. All right, hey y'all. I am Chris. I am one of the two returning adult senators, as SGA refers to us, and this legislation simply changes that to adult learner, the way the Office of Adult Learning refers to us. So we'll be doing the same thing, representing the same constituency, and just changing 2 words. Thank you.
At this time, are there any questions for Senator Harris? Seeing none. Oh, Senator Bastian.
Do you think 2 senators is an accurate reflection of the population of your group?
That is obviously not an accurate representation of our population, but that's how many people who join SGA to represent us. We're trying to get more people. That takes time.
Are there any further questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. And again, this was a first read. We will debate and vote on that next week. Item 2, Section 8, the clerk will read.
Okay, this is Act on Request to Approve SB-65-032, and forgive me if I say this wrong, confirming Vaishnavi Rangaru as an at-large senator.
And before we move forward with that, yes, are they here? You're here. Okay, okay. So I will speak as to why this is a nominee. This is somebody who was chosen under Speaker Kirk when he was Speaker, and I wanted to move forward with that. And I talked to President Kirk, who was Speaker at the time, and I asked him why he selected this individual, and he had stated that they were very passionate about advocating for students, as well as determined not to let anything stand in their way as they try to navigate different paths for navigating or for advocating for students. And at this time, I will stand for any questions. Seeing none, is the nominee here and wish to speak?
Hello everyone, my name is Vaishnavi, and I applied for this position last summer. So I want to represent the students and see if they have any issues and try to resolve the problems through me. So I am more interested into diversity, inclusion. I'm an international student, and I understand how important it is for the students to be heard and get the problems resolved. So I want to represent the students. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions at this time? Yes, Senator Bastian.
Hi, Vaishnavi.
Hello.
What are the issues your constituents face?
Anything related to academics, or if they want to be included in various kinds of activities, or if any student organization has, I'm a part of supply chain management also. So I'm the treasurer for SASEM. So that's one of the part through which I can also represent that organization if they have any issues or any recommendations for budgets or any plans. It's just a small thing, maybe a beginning.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. You can stay or leave for debate. And we will now open up the debate period. Is there anybody who would like to speak in affirmation or negation of this nominee? Seeing none, we will move into the voting period. A is yes to confirm, B is no, and C is abstain. The voting period is now open.
With 32 yes, 2 no, and 1 abstention, the motion passes.
Congratulations. Before we move to item 3, I'd like to confirm that Wassam Ali is present. Seeing that they are not, we will move to item 4 of section 8. The clerk will read.
Act on request to approve SB-65-074, confirming Wang as an underserved senator.
So as I met with Wen, she had phenomenal responses. She expressed a high want to serve the student body and to make changes here on campus. She's only a freshman, and just some of the responses she gave me was just phenomenal. But she's also willing to step out of her shell. She's willing to step up for the good of Wichita State and the students. And for that is why I nominated her. And at this time, I will sit for any questions. Seeing none, would you like to speak? Okay, awesome.
I'm a little short, so. Good evening. I know it's late, so I'll keep this short and sweet. My name is Wang. I'm a first year here at WSU. Firstly, I know everyone in Senate has worked hard to be here, and I'd be honored if I could join you all in representing the student body. I decided to run for Senate after some encouragement from Senator Pang. I've always been interested, but I was scared of the process. It seemed kind of really scary. Senator Pang definitely helped guide me through this entire process. Luckily, everyone I have met so far, including Junior, has been really kind and thoughtful. Some of the extracurriculars I'm involved in include PASS, the Pre-Med Association, and Taekwondo, although that is off campus. I've had leadership experience before, holding office as secretary of a Kansas state chapter, representing thousands of students at national conferences. I've also held office at my local chapter as president and historian. My passion to represent others stems from a lack of representation that I had growing up. As a young adult, though, I've been inspired by many of my peers and their drive and passion to serve others. I want to show others that no matter what your background is, you can achieve anything. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I will open up for any questions. Are there any questions at this time? Yes, Senator Bastian.
Sorry.
You're fine.
You said you wanted to represent people like you. So where would you say people like you are lacking?
So I'm running for underrepresented senator. I feel like a lot of the constituents that I would be representing just don't know of the resources here on campus. I certainly did not until my professors had introduced it to me, but only because they found out that I did not know about these resources and they were advertising these. I think not knowing about these resources is definitely a disadvantage to those who are underrepresented or underserved, just because they already are at a disadvantage, but with these resources, they could have a leg up to help them in their academics and also extracurriculars.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. We will now move into the debate period. You can stay or leave for debate. Is there anybody who would like to speak in affirmation or negation of this nominee? Yes, Senator Cunningham.
I would like to speak in affirmation of this nominee. As an underserved senator myself and as an Asian American, I think it's really nice to see some more representation, not only in Senate, but at Wichita State as a whole. So I think that this nominee could do really great things within the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And I'd love to see what they can do, especially with all of the things that they have done as a freshman already.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak during this debate period? Senator Bastian?
I don't know if this is a point of clarification, but I just want to tell the senators, stop taking all nice, diverse candidates to the DEI committee. I'd like to have some on my committees as well. So don't be stingy, but overall, representation and diversity is always a good thing.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak during debate right now? Seeing none, we will close debate and move into the voting period. Again, A is yes to confirm, B is no, and C is abstain. Voting is now open.
With 34 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstentions, the motion passes.
Congratulations. At this time, we will move to item 5 of section 8. The clerk will read.
Act on request to approve SB-65-075, confirming Ishwant Sai as an engineering senator.
So this is another candidate I was able to interview, and his responses were also great. He has great problem-solving skills, as he has served as an event coordinator for one of his organizations. He's been willing to make sure that students come first. He's expressed that he loves SGA's motto, students do come first. Well, students come first is what's in quotation marks, but and he loves that motto because it resonates with him. Beyond willing to make connections, he's also willing to make connections with those that are in the engineering department. And for that, I will stand for any questions. Was that a question, Senator Clark? Okay. Seeing none, we will now hear from the nominee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ashwin Salmanchi. I'm here to represent as a senator for engineering students. Actually, main reason that I'm here is that I have talked with my fellow students that they're facing some issues regarding tutoring, and also I have talked to my fellow students, and I have filtered that there are main 2 issues that were regarding tutoring, and also second one is about dining, shocker dining, because first one is tutoring. There are very less opportunities, like less tutor options regarding subjects of computer science and supply chain management, and I want to tell that issue, and I feel that this position will help me to discuss about it. And also second one, I'm glad that chairpersons and senators were pointed out about shocker dining issue, which is like it is containing a very less variety of options. I feel that, oh, not again, you should eat that. So I'm glad that I'm here, and I want to represent as a good senator for my fellow students. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? Senator Bastian?
So when you brought up tutoring, a lot of the international students and graduate students, they're expected to know the basics of the subject before they come to the US, to study. Sorry, let me rephrase that. So graduate students are expected to know the fundamentals of the subject that they're pursuing before they come here. So when you say you need tutoring for that, in what aspect? Because usually it's undergrads who access more of the tutoring options. So I'm assuming you're saying grad students face the same issues, right?
Actually, sorry, it's about undergrad students. I've talked with them, and mainly on computer science students, they told me that there were very less subjects that they were tutoring. So they feel that if there are more subjects that will be tutored, they could raise their grades, and it would be awesome for them.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, Senator Desai.
Can you tell me what would be your strategy to solve this problem?
I'm thinking that actually there are total of 7 tutoring officers I have observed everywhere, and there's separate office for math tutoring. So that I would expect separate office for computer science also. It's pretty difficult for computers regarding programming and write Java, Python. It's a bit difficult. So it would be more helpful if we arrange a separate office of tutoring for that computer science. Thank you.
Are there any further questions at this time? Senator Desai?
Are you only talking about the computer science department, or if you want to be the engineering senator, you have to focus on all the areas, right?
Actually, I have talked to other engineering undergrads as well, but I have mainly pointed out about computer science students. Actually, they talked to me that they were facing more problems on this, so I'm saying that, mainly pointing that computer science students, remaining students, they were good with their grades and they were comfortable with their subject as far as I know. I think that's okay.
Thank you. Are there any further questions at this time? Seeing none, we will move in. Thank you. You can either stay or leave for debate. We will move into the debate period. Is there anybody wishing to speak in affirmation or negation of this nominee? Seeing none, we will move into the voting period. Again, A is yes, B is no, and C is to abstain, and the voting period is now open.
With 32 yes, 3 no, and 0 abstentions, the motion passes.
Thank you. At this time, we will move into Section 9, Adjournment. The Student Government Association will stand in adjournment until Wednesday, October 26th at 6:30, and I hereby adjourn at 7:41 p.m.
Can all of our new senators please come see me, please? And by new, I mean like today's new.
Yes. Senator Desai and Senator Soderstrom, can you come up to me, please? After.